It's not avoiding setbacks because change is going to happen. What are you going to do? And eventually learn to really question all these things that pop into my head. I really take the time to question all these things because are they true, real? Are they valid? Am I blowing things out of proportion? But it's really believing that I can handle it. I can figure it out. I can ask other people. I can pull on other resources. I don't have to do everything myself, but no matter what, I can figure it out. Part of it is realizing that if we stick with it and work hard enough at it, we may not have the original thing that we thought we wanted or the goal, the expectation, but it might be something else. It might be something better.
This is the Relentless Pursuit of Winning podcast, where we are here to educate, equip, and inspire people to build extraordinary companies. We're so glad you're here. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you can get updates every time we drop a new episode. Now, let's get it started. Hey, folks, we are back with another episode of the Relentless Pursuit of Winning podcast. My name is Rick Meekins. I am your host as usual. And in our studio today, we have Lisa Dye. How are you, Lisa?
I'm doing great. Doing great. Having a great day. How about you?
I'm good. I haven't seen the thumbs up before. People give me, so I'm always curious about how people are going to respond to my question. So I'm glad that you are thumbs up today.
I
And
am.
today we're going to be talking about some amazing coaching and resilience. So let's do this before we get started. If you are watching the show or you're listening to the show and you haven't done it already, I would be so grateful if you would like and subscribe, hit the bell so you get updates every time we drop a new episode, and we can keep the show going that way. So now, without further ado, let's get into it. Lisa, tell us who you are, what you do, and why you do what you do.
All right. Thank you for the introduction, the opening the door. So I have been a career CPA for 30 years, hard to believe. And a couple of years ago, I left active practice and went into coaching. And the reason I did that was really to make more of an impact on people's lives personally, not just do their books or their tax returns. That's what I felt my life was missing, personal satisfaction of helping people in a way that's more personal with more of an impact. And for me, when I work with clients, I work with people similar to myself that are professional leaders that maybe look very successful on paper, as I felt for a number of years, but actually feel uncertain, maybe a little hesitant on the inside, but they don't show that. And I think our topic of resilience, we can touch on how we can kind of change the inside and not just how we look on the outside.
Interesting. I love that. I love that. I love that. I hear that periodically from entrepreneurs. They've done what they've done for, X number of years, and they feel like they need to pivot. They feel like they need to change. How did that come to you?
Well,
How did it come to you, and what really gave you the courage to say, you know what, I need to pivot. I need to go right.
I'd like to say it was like one singular moment, but it wasn't. It was accumulation of, I think, days that I woke up and I asked myself, what am I doing? What am I doing? Is this what I want to be doing? Is this the life I want to be living?
Yeah.
And I think at one day, kind of the straw broke the camel's back. And I was like, I need to make a change. I need to do something different and listen to this like tiny voice. I feel like 99% of the time I wasn't listening to it, but that one time it finally got through. And I knew I had to do something different with how my career was going, what I was doing work wise, and how I felt inside, quite honestly. And, the whole thing of what do we think success is? What does that mean? And I felt like I've had some successes throughout my life, but I felt like, well, is that really gratifying to me? Is that like what's going to make me happy? What we think is happiness? And I felt like, no, I'm off. There's something here. I have some other work that I need to be doing, another calling. And I really just started going into the coaching space. I went through a group coaching program myself and kind of my eyes like wide open after that experience. And I don't want to say I wasn't expecting any change. I was expecting maybe some change, but not really like a 180 change. And that's really what ended up happening. So it started sort of slow. Then I hit a wall, and that's, really when things opened up and I decided to make some radical changes.
You said it started going slow and then you hit a wall. What did you mean by that? Was that with the CPA work? Was that with the coaching work? Or was that with life?
It was just getting exposed to some new ideas, quite honestly. I had a friend that referred me to like a free workshop, and I went to it and I heard things I'd never heard before. And I was just sort of stunned and I couldn't believe it. And so I went back for more. I attended a few more workshops and ended up signing up for a group coaching program. And that's where I started to believe more things were possible, that I actually had sort of a tunnel vision for most of my life. And I thought, there's a lot more for me to feel, do, experience, believe that I had been. And so after that experience, I decided to go into coaching and help people experience what I experienced. It was very eye opening. And I realized that I was limiting myself big time. And it was really myself kind of capping what I could do in life, what I believed about myself, all the things.
Mm. I need you to dig into that a little bit more. I mean, coaching sometimes is such a nebulous space, and it means different things to different people. We have the opportunity to talk about concrete examples of how coaching changed the way that you think, the way that you believe in yourself, and the way that you see the world, perhaps. So, can you dig into that a little bit more?
Sure, sure, absolutely. When I think about how I went through life, I sort of was following another path that somebody designed for me. Namely, my parents, started me on a path, and I thought, okay, this is what you do to be successful. Here's the steps. Boom, 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 boom. You follow them. So that's what I did. Did the school thing, went to college, got the job, all the things, get promoted within companies, all the stuff that I thought, would bring me success and sort of and happiness. And so I thought, okay, I'll do that. And over the years, I was very restless. But I thought, well, this is just what I do. Maybe it's just me. This is what I'm thinking. And for me, I always thought, oh, these things are all just in my head that, not feeling like I could do more. Like I had a lot of self doubt and thought, oh, well, I'm good at this, but I'm not that good at that. I feel like the whole imposter syndrome, which we've heard more about like the last 10 years, I lived that for years. I thought, when are they going to figure out that I'm really not that smart? And all these things would kind of run through my head and just figured, well, this is the path for me. I'll do the best that I can. And this is where I'm at. And so for years, that's what I did. And once I was really exposed to teaching and material that told me that that's all in my head, right? All those kind of ideas that this is what I should do. This is all I can do. I've kind of maxed out sort of what's possible for me, and everything else outside of that is scary, and I shouldn't do it. I kind of started questioning those things. And it even breaks it down to like how I felt day to day, just small doubts that might pop into my head or some negativity that, come in for myself or somebody else or something. And I eventually learned to really question all these things that I'm thinking, that I'm believing, whether they're long standing things or new things that pop into my head. I really take the time to question all these things because are they true? Are they real? Are they valid? Am I blowing things out of proportion? Is somebody else blowing things out of proportion? So, we have all these inputs coming into us all the time. So it's for me really taking a look at everything, at a huge level. And so if it's a difficulty, is this really a challenge or am I looking at it? Could I look at it differently? And even looking at the other side of things, looking at how wonderful things are in my life, how grateful I am for what I have, and how we could have a lot of things going wrong and they aren't going wrong. And so I think with my background in accounting, we were always kind of taught to be skeptical professionally. And a lot of that skepticism kind of trickled into my personal life. And so I was like, why do I always assume worst case scenario? It's not that you can't consider it for a moment, but you give it like a 95% chance it's going to happen. It's like, well, no, it's actually probably like 1%, but we feel like, oh no, this is really going to happen. And then we don't do things because that we avoid new opportunities. We avoid risks, which could pan out for us, but we don't try it because we think it's super risky, but it's really not. We kind of, I think, overthink. We're heavily weighted on the negative side, a lot of people, and myself included. And so for me, it's really like, is that real? So I've always done a lot of, in the last few years, particularly questioning of things, reevaluating, reflection, and thinking through these things real. And how do I look at these things? Could this be, oh, this is such a problem? What could be an awesome opportunity too? So why don't we look at it at both sides and give it equal weight and see what happens? And just try. part of the thing is, and I teach myself, I tell myself this, and I teach my clients, is that believing that no matter what comes your way, I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to handle it. And that's kind of tying a little bit into this resilience topic. And I didn't believe that for a long time. I thought, oh my God, if this thing's happened, I'm ruined. I'm in trouble. I'm going to lose money. I'm going to lose my job. And I always went to that place. And it's like, no, why don't you go to the place that, hey, I'm actually pretty strong of a person. And if I look at things the right way and really evaluate them, if I have to lean on others or other resources, I might, and that's okay too. But it's really believing that I can handle it. I can figure it out. I can ask other people. I can pull on other resources. Right? I don't have to do everything myself, but no matter what, I can figure it out. And I think a lot of times we don't do things because they seem like, oh, this could go wrong. And then what's going to happen? I'm going to have some big problem if I go this route. Well, maybe you will have a problem. Will you still be able to figure it out? Yeah, probably. And so I think for me, it's like I kind of don't mind whatever challenges come my way because I believe that I'm going to be able to handle it. I can figure it out. And it's really from self awareness that I've developed, particularly over the last number of years, that's helped me get to that place. And so I help my clients do that too. Because a lot of times they tend to spiral into the negative and worst case scenario. I'm like, well, no matter what happens, you can figure it out. And if you can't, you could lean on others to help you figure it out. So that's how I kind of want to talk about a little bit about resilience, but that's kind of what I think day to day. And that's how I help my clients think. And I didn't think that way for decades, Rick. I really didn't. I thought way at the other end. I always said, oh, this is terrible. I can't do this. I can't do this. It's like, well, actually, I can, right? And actually, I'm going to be fine. So that's how I changed my thinking.
That's a lot of courage. I've got a friend. I've got a good friend. He says he's a banker. He's a consultant that works for banks. But we would say something, and he's always doing a risk assessment, no matter what it is we're talking about. It's like, I mean, to go to a restaurant, and for him to like go through a menu, I was like, does it have this? Does it have that? It's like, dude, just order some food.
Yeah, I can imagine.
The funny thing is, though, it's like as someone, my perception, someone that works in such a, I'll use a square, a logic driven profession to go into a profession that to me seems to be more subjective. How do you justify that? How do you craft enough data? How do you gather enough data to be able to get to the point where you're saying, you know what, I have enough data. I'm going to make this decision. I need to hire a coach. I need to become a coach.
I think that's a great question to ask for anybody, whether they're logic driven or not. But thinking about, I was in that space where I was like predominantly logic driven, and how can you make a change to be in a more subjective space and be okay with that? I think that's kind of the direction you're asking me. And it's really, if I can change, you can change. If I can change the way I think, anybody can change the way they think. And people think, well, is it as simple as just changing the way I think? Actually, it is. Right? And it seems like, "Oh, come on, it really can't be that simple." But when you think about we have thousands of thoughts every single day. I've heard anywhere from, 50,000 and 70,000 thoughts a day. And, positive, negative, neutral, whatever, but a lot of them are negative. And a lot of them are on repeat. Like 90% of them we think repetitively. So if you can, kind of change the way you think, and I even appeal to the logic because my clients are very logic driven also. I say, hey, if you can look at a client challenge and work through it logically, you can do the same thing in your own life, even with something that's logical, even with your emotions, right? Even because if you understand yourself better, you can understand why did I have this emotional reaction, right? Let me think through it. You can apply logic to things that are emotionally based, right? And try to get an understanding. And if it's something that there isn't a black and white answer, part of it is accepting that this is how it is or this isn't going to change and that's okay. I work a lot with my clients on what's in my control, what's out of my control, and we talk about that. And certainly we can control what's in our own circle, like, our thoughts, our beliefs, how we see ourselves, how we perceive others. We can't do anything about the things outside. We can't do anything about what a family member did or a boss did or, happened in the economy or whatever. And so part of it is accepting that sometimes we can't change things. And that's okay. What can I change about where I'm at and how I relate to that? And then we do that. So I think a lot of it is accepting and letting go of things that we can't change. And that's how I operate with my own self and then with my clients. And so it's, when you think about how do you go from logic driven to subjective, it's like you can still sort of logically look at things and maybe take down the emotion, in some cases. Give yourself grace. Sometimes things are highly emotional. And so it's okay. You should feel the emotion. Don't stuff it away or suppress it. Allow yourself to feel the emotion. But then once you kind of can calm down and gather yourself, you can look at it logically, actually. And if you're struggling to do that, then get some help, from somebody that can really maybe help you balance the emotional, logical aspects of life.
This is right. I had a couple of conversations over the past couple of days, and we talked specifically about emotions. And um, I think one of the challenges. I think there were two different perspectives. One was a gentleman who had an external circumstance, basically disrupt his life. And what he had said was, in order for him to keep going and doing the things that he needed to do on a daily basis, he had to basically gray rock. He had to, put his emotions on the back burner and just deal with, day in and day out. And, it sounds relatable, in a way. I mean, you've got to do what you got to do. But I think on the other end of that stuff, the conversation where generally that things were happening and he accepted that it happened, but was still emotionally charged, trouble discharging, just understanding, how to manage those emotions so that
They're
so
perfect.
the second person, he had things going on, that were outside of his control, and accepted the fact that there were things that are in his control, things were outside of his control, but nevertheless was still emotionally charged, and I guess felt frustrated or whatever because um, he wasn't able to manage the emotions in a way that would allow him to continue moving forward. Or I shouldn't say continue moving forward, but kind of slowed his progress. Kind of, was a short term obstacle, if you will.
Yeah, I think if you're having trouble managing the emotions, you could probably get some help, right? Because
Yeah.
if it's outside of your scope that, hey, you've tried and it's just not working out, it's becoming a hindrance or obstacle for you to make progress or move ahead in any of your life, whether it's just, professionally or just how you feel day to day. Right? That's really a time I think you lean on some professionals, whether it's a therapist, coach, mentor, that can really help you process those. Emotional regulation, it's like a muscle, just like a muscle in our body, right? A physical muscle. Like we can work on improving it. And even if we have great emotional regulation and then something huge happens in our life, kind of a traumatic event, whatever that might have been, that's might be out of our scope of what we've been able to handle before. So, even if you think, hey, I've been in a pretty good space otherwise, and then this thing happened, it just blew me out of the water. That happens, right? So give yourself the
Yeah.
grace that, hey, I'm not sure how to handle this. I've tried and I can't work through it. That's really when you time that you probably need some extra help, and whether it's a professional or leaning on family or friends or your support network, you decide, maybe try a few things and see what helps you.
Got it. Got it. Got it. So what I understand is that the coaching world opened up new opportunities to you. It helped you see the world a little bit differently. We talked a little bit about emotions, and there are times where uh, need to learn how to manage them in a different way. Um, when we started talking, you started talking along the lines of resilience. Can you go into first of all? I mean, obviously, I guess it's easy to understand, but break down resilience for us. What does that mean?
So, resilience isn't necessarily being tough all the time, right? But just like we were mentioning, it's sort of something you can develop. It's not a personality trait, like you're born with it, you're not. It's something that
Yeah.
you can develop. And it really starts with that self awareness, right? And understanding yourself. Because if you have challenges that come in and you have problems and oh, this is terrible, and you blow it off and you never think about it, and it's somebody else's problem, right? That type of person probably isn't that self-aware because they don't realize, like, well, what could I do to handle it, situationally, strategically? What can I do to handle it emotionally, right? So a lot of it starts, the whole resilience topic starts with, I believe, self-awareness. understanding yourself and kind of going back to what I touched on before is really believing that I can develop the ability to handle any kind of challenge. Right. And it's just really seeing it beyond just like, oh, I have to be tough right now. You don't have to be tough every minute, and you can recognize that you have some strong negative emotions that happen to you, and that's okay. Give yourself some grace to work through them. But then when you can kind of calm down and think about it, what can I do about that? Why did I have this thing happen to me? Or why did I have this emotional outburst? Right. So it's really understanding yourself a bit more and becoming aware of what you're thinking, you're feeling, patterns that you might have, mentally, or behavior patterns. And what can I do to change them in a way if it needs to be to work through something difficult?
How do we, start to look at things differently so that we can come back from whatever challenge it is that we're facing?
I think it really involves reflection. It first starts with you have to pause, right? And look at a situation. Let's just assume you're going through something difficult right now. So it's really pausing and noticing what are my thoughts around this situation? What is swirling in there? Maybe it's like, what does this mean for my life? Or, oh, my feelings are hurt. Or, oh, I might lose my job. I might lose income. Whatever is swirling through there,
Yeah.
noticing those thoughts and what are the emotions attached to those things. So really taking a hard look at them, and maybe a pattern of thinking or a pattern of behavior of what maybe did it contribute to this situation. Is it making it better or worse? So it's really noticing those thoughts, emotions, patterns before they start running you. Right, you have control over what happens actually there, not the thoughts or emotions. You can decide that I can get a handle on it, and it's just not like I'm going to blow off the handle, let my emotions run the show. So it's really being aware of what's happening, noticing those things and working through them, right? And I think too with certain things, if something difficult happens and you think like, oh, this is going to be bad for me, I'm going to lose in some way. Kind of want to redefine like what winning is, right? If you see everything as losing, it's not avoiding setbacks or difficulties. It's really staying clear headed, right? And grounded, right? Because change is going to happen, difficulties are going to happen. What are you going to do? Right. So it's being really prepared and grounded sort of mentally from a awareness space. And then if it's necessary, changing the way you see things, slowing things down so you can pause and really work through them. And I think on the other side of it is understanding that you can get through this thing. It's that belief that I can get through whatever is coming my way. Good change, bad change, whatever it is, that I think is the real resilience piece. As some people define it as grit, belief that, hey, I can tough through anything, but I don't think it's just being tough. Right. And I think it's a little more than just the toughness aspects. Doesn't mean you have to be strong every minute. You can, give yourself a moment to really work through it. And you might have a bad reaction initially, but over time, as you become more resilient, you become better at responding to things, not reacting to things, and having a better positive response and therefore better outcome afterwards. So I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, I like that. I like what you said, that it didn't have to always be grit. When I think about grit, it's just like you keep going no matter what. You're fighting through the storms, et cetera, et cetera. But what you presented to me was more along the lines of, I'll say, a more strategic approach. It's something where we're trying to, not just go through it, but figure out the best way. It's like, what are almost, what are my strengths and weaknesses in this situation? How can I, clear my mind, and develop a path forward that's going to, there may be options, but what is the best option to proceed for right now? And perhaps even, taking it a step further, taking it one step at a time versus, when I think of grit, it's just like, I just need to get to the end no matter what happens.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a great distinction, actually, because to your point, grit feels like suppressing whatever negative emotion might be associated with that, whether it's like, I'm upset, I'm not happy, whatever. well, whatever, I'm just going to work through it, right? And
Yeah.
just stuff it down, work through it. I mean, part of it, I think, is recognizing, hey, I really don't like this. This really made me mad, sad, whatever it is recognizing that, is taking that time to recognize that. And it's like, okay, well, why was I upset about this? Oh, because this wasn't what I expected. And that's okay, right? I think, we need to process the emotion at the time instead of stuffing it down, just like, oh, I could just work through it. I could just power through it, right? I think that's not really what resilience is, because at the end of it, if you power through it and you still have those like negative lingering things, the anger, the sadness, whatever it is, and you never dealt with it, it's going to build up over time. It's going to show up in some random place that you don't expect in a situation. It's like, why didn't you blow up at me? Oh, well, because I was upset about something that happened 2 months ago that I didn't want to happen. Right. And so we want to kind of process it when we see it, when we start seeing it happening, right? Like, oh, why am I so mad and angry? Okay, because this isn't what I wanted. And so we process those thoughts, those emotions at the time, and don't let them fester, don't suppress them.
One thing I've been, I guess, talking to self talk with myself is has to do with expectations. I've had a number of conversations, I probably over the past year with regard to expectations, and I found, and you kind of alluded to it. I found that when I have certain expectations and those expectations didn't weren't realized, it sometimes put me in a funk. Put me in a place where I was just like, just really frustrated and disappointed. And so one of the conversations that I've had, a couple of conversations I had were along the lines of actually not creating expectations. So we have goals, and we don't quite, we're going in the direction of those goals, but if we avoid the expectation, then or avoid creating expectation, then we avoid some level of disappointment. And my question that I had about that is, if you don't create expectation, how do you truly go all in? How do you put in that appropriate effort to get to that end zone? Do you have a thought on that?
Yeah, I do. It's really interesting that you say that, because for my whole life, I always used to say, I don't handle disappointment well. And so for me, when I kind of had my revelation through coaching and older in life, I was like, I'm going to deal with this in a better way. And so whether you call it expectation or goal, if the thing is, you don't want to feel like, if I have this expectation and I don't reach it, you don't want it to feel like I'm so mad, I'm upset, I'm disappointed in myself, all those things, right? And part of it is managing the expectations, right? And seeing that, well, just because I didn't reach this goal or this didn't happen, it doesn't mean that maybe something better isn't going to happen, right? Like we might think, oh, I took this path, I went for this strategy and it didn't work out. Well, how do you know that you didn't need to have to go through that, because you had to learn something in that process? And on the other side of it, something actually much better is coming. Or maybe it's going to take you two unexpected negative things to go through. And then on the other side of that, those two, something amazing is going to happen. Like all these things I feel like are preparing us for greatness at some point, whether it's like two stumbling blocks, five stumbling blocks, whatever it looks like. Now we don't like it, right? We might, oh, I can't believe it. We talked a little bit about this at the top of the show, that we had these things we've tried and it didn't work. We tried and it didn't work. We're getting up to bat so many times we get tired, right? And I think that's natural, but it's really believing that if I stick with it long enough, if I try some different things, that I'm going to reach my goal, and maybe I'll get diverted to over here. But I may never have known about this other opportunity if I didn't do these two difficult things that didn't work out. Right. And I think it's believing that it's going to work out. I'm going to figure it out. And it actually probably will be something better than what my original expectation was or original goal was. But we can't always see that. But part of it is believing that will happen for me, is having some level of belief in yourself and life and opportunity just to keep going. But I totally understand your disappointment part, because I lived in that space, that I felt it was so heavy on me. I was so disappointed, right? It just used to drag me down. And I thought, well, why do I have to go there? Why can't I recognize it for a short period of time? Yeah, this isn't what I wanted. This isn't what I wanted to happen. Okay, that's all right. And then let go of that and think, well, but what could be something good that could come out of this? That I'll be stronger, that I learned more, whether it's even a failed business, a failed strategy, whatever it might be, right? Like, when I think back on different things that I've done, I've had, some small businesses that I've tried and they failed. And I was like, well, that was disappointing. I put all my effort in and different things and it didn't work out. But actually, in that process, it taught me so much more about how to do things right for my next opportunity and better and faster. And I had to go through it at that time to really learn that lesson.
Wow. 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 This is the second time I heard, and I'm going to translate this into, divine orchestration. Today, first, second time today. You know, I s- because we're coming into a new year, everybody, or I shouldn't say everybody, lots of people are saying, oh, well, this is going to be your year and everything is going to work out and blah, blah, blah. And I sit here and I look at this and I'm always asking that question. It's like, how do you know? How do you know, this happened, this happened, this happened. They didn't work out the way it was planned. Why can people say with such confidence, oh, it's because something greater is going to happen?
That's a really great question. And I think for me, I look at people that inspire me. Let's say it's a Thomas Edison that went through 10,000 iterations before he got one to work. Now, do I want to go through 10,000 iterations? No, right? We don't have to pretend that we enjoy that.
Right.
But part of it is realizing that if we stick with it and work hard enough at it, we may not have the original thing that we thought we wanted or the goal, the expectation, but it might be something else. It might be something better. So for me, what are our choices? We could be sad and wallow in it and not be productive, or we can feel like we really tried. I feel like if we really tried and gave it our effort, you can't say, I didn't do my best, right? That I didn't go for what I wanted to go for. I mean, when you think about people that, get to an advanced age and they're running out of time, they think, oh, I should have done this. I should have done this. I should have tried this. Now is our time to do those things. We don't want to have a lot of shouldas. And we can't say, "Hey, I really tried for that. I tried this route. I tried that route." Like, I gave it my all. That must mean that I meant to do something else or that there's something else beyond this that I just don't see. That I had to try these experiments, so to speak, and maybe they didn't work out, but I had to do those to learn. And, I feel like to your point, how do we know we have the belief or how can we get the belief? And it's like, well, we have the choice to not to just sit back and do nothing, or we can really try and feel like we became stronger, smarter, learned a lot along the way, which I still feel are wins, even if they're not technically the win that we thought we were going to have. And so that's how I view it. And a lot of times I think if we can change our perspective on things, it makes such a big difference. We think, oh, I've had all these failures and it didn't work out. How do I, I can't keep going. We could stay there, but that's a really negative place. Why would you want to do that when there's so many good things and positive things in your life and in life in general that we could just, hey, let me just try this a little more time. Let me just one more time, one more time. And maybe if we hit a wall with something, maybe that's the time that we ask, right? We lean on our support, look for more resources and say, hey, I've tried this thing a few times and it's not working out. What am I missing? What could I have done differently? Right? Because sometimes we don't know everything, right? But if we maybe ask, maybe it'll help us shorten our learning curve and we will get to that goal or that expectation that we wanted.
Yeah, yeah, I like that. You offered a reframing, which I thought was really interesting. You talked about the idea that even though I'll paraphrase it. Sometimes we don't win, but we learn. And you said that was the more important thing. And for me, that sounds like almost like reframing what we look like. Life is life for example. One of the things, and one of the other things that I was really impressed about with Thomas Edison is that one of his factories burned down. And first thing you think when your factory's burning down, it's like you're losing everything. You're losing inventory, research, et cetera, et cetera. And so instead of panicking, instead of, breaking down, et cetera, he went and got his family and said, come look at this fire because you're never going to see like anything like this anytime in your life. And to be able to go through life like that, in order to be able to look at your life, look at your successes, look at your failures, look at everything that you're learning and growing, that's a different thinking than we are typically raised with. And we're raised with, hey, we have to get the money, we have to get the thing, we have to get the relationship, we have. how do we, and I don't know if we have time to to answer this question, but how do we reframe? How do we reprogram our minds so that these intrinsic values are more important than the physical assets that we're
I think part of it is putting more value on the learning and the lessons and less value on the success or the thing, right? And what do we get out of the learning? We become a different person. We become a better person. We become a fuller person. And, if we're going for, let's say, money as an example, as a goal, we want to have a huge profit on our business or whatever it might be. And those are great things. Those are good goals. But at the end of the day, when you talk to people, like, let's say they're in their last days of their life, are they going to say, I wish I had more money? No, they're going to want to have more like lived experiences, more maybe lessons that they could pass on to their family or their friends. You know what I mean? So I think for me, one of my favorite quotes is from John C. Maxwell, which is sometimes you win and sometimes you learn. And for me, I see those as 2 positive things. They're both positive. So no matter how you go into a situation, you're going to get a positive out of it, whether it's a win, like we think we're going to win, or a lesson that's really important that we had to learn for whatever reason. We had to learn it at this time, and it could carry us forward into something better. I mean, I think for me, when I think about, I consider Bob Proctor like a mentor to me. And when somebody asked him, like, well, how do you see yourself? Who do you see as you are? And he goes, well, I feel like I'm a student. And, he said this in his 80s. He felt like he was always learning. And that was always important to him to keep growing and learning and becoming a bigger and better person, and more full in your life by having those life lessons or learning from others, whatever the case may be. So for me, I think it's, what am I learning, right? What am I learning out of this? Is this making me a stronger person? Maybe I can help other people with this knowledge that I wouldn't be able to before, And so it's just really changing how we view that. Maybe that change won't happen overnight, right? Because we were sort of programmed to believe success is X. Maybe it's, making more money. Maybe it's having a prestigious business, whatever that is. So it's part of it is retraining ourselves to believe that there's more to life than those things. And at the end of the day, does that stuff really matter? Like I often tell my clients, like, act like you're on your deathbed. What would you be thinking about is important, right? And not that we shouldn't work on things for our business and earning profits and those things, those are good things. But at the very end of the day, if we're like hyper focused, that's all that matters to us. Is that really what's going to bring us happiness, peace, joy? I don't think so. Maybe, everybody's a little different, but I think if we can look at it from a perspective when we're sort of running out of time, when we don't have other options, we're terminal or whatever, however you want to describe it, it really gives us laser focus on what we should be thinking about, right? What's really important. And like I go there frequently myself. Like if I'm in a funk and I get upset about something and it's lingering a little bit, it's like, well, big picture, is this going to matter to me, right? When I'm older, when I'm on my deathbed, when I get grandkids, all this other stuff, and it's like, well, no, right? And it's like, yeah, I can be upset about it for a few moments and I get over it, right? Because in the big picture, it's like, okay, I'm going to figure out something else. Or I'm going to do something else, whatever the case may be. I'm going to get out of this and be better in the long run because I tried it, right? I became a bigger person and learned more.
two things you said jumped out to me. One was the almost competing with yourself, getting better every day. And the other piece I heard you say a couple of times where you talked about being able to give to others. What are your thoughts on those items?
Yeah, I think my coach has said to me, like, you really should only be competing with the best version of yourself, right? Not others. It's like, so you're always aiming to be the best that you could be. And what does that look like, right? So for me, it's always learning and growing in some way or another, whether it's difficulties or easy things, whatever, from others, all the ways that we can learn. So for me, I feel like that is a perspective to have and less about, well, what are the Joneses doing and how can I keep up with so and so's business, right? It's like I'd rather compete with being the best version of myself than with other people because it's, the comparison game is a losing game when you look at others, and that's just not a way to go. And then what was your second point again?
So you talked a number of times about giving back to others. So it was like you gained this knowledge to pass down, to pass forward.
Uh-huh.
And the question is along the lines of, why is that important?
I think for me, it goes back to the impact. right? So if I learn a lesson and I can share that with somebody and that can shorten their learning curve, that could help them reach success, that could help them make a bigger impact. It's a ripple effect that we could have by doing that. And I think that's one of the greatest legacies you can live is to help others in a way like learning in a way like a lesson, whether it's a failed business, a life lesson, whatever it is, that's really one of the greatest gifts that you can give people is your lived experience, right? Your lived lessons and sharing those and helping somebody else along the way. I think the gratification you get from doing that is immeasurable. And so for me, I feel like that's kind of my definition of success, really, is how can I help other people and make an impact in their life in one way or another. So for me, I've kind of redefined as success and not chasing the dollar per se as much anymore as I am about really helping others and making an impact in their life.
Do you differentiate between joy and happiness?
I've heard people talk about that. I don't feel like for me, I don't have a big differentiation between the two. I sort of they seem synonymous in a lot of ways. It's just a feeling, right? It's a feeling of joy, happiness. I use them sort of interchangeably, but I know some people do have some different views on that, but I see them very similar, too similar to really see them as separate terms.
Okay, okay. So we've talked about a lot of things. We've talked about resilience, we talked about toughness, we went all over the place. My question for you is how important is it to pursue happiness? And what kinds of things would make up that happiness? That true happiness, not just I got to hang out with my best friend happiness, but that happiness that, just comes from the inside of you.
I think that's for everybody to define. But I do think sort of a good test is to sort of go to your deathbed. Right? What would I be thinking on my deathbed? And what would be like, oh, I wish I did more of this. I wish I did more of that. Then do more of that while you're living, right? If it's spending time with family, if it's giving back to your community, right? Whatever that looks like, if it's sharing your lessons, whatever that looks like, then do more of that now, right? Sort of have that sort of happiness now if you can do it that way. That's how I see things. But that's for me, I hate to sound morbid, but I kind of go to when you can't change a lot, right? If you're passing away in a few days, what would I do then? Right? It sort of puts my back against the wall to answer it super honestly. And so that's kind of like the test that I do for decisions, whether it be happiness or what I'm doing.
I like that. I like that. So you have a giveaway for our audience. You want to talk about that real quick?
Sure. I have a resilience mini journal that I think would be great for anybody to use at any time. It has, probing questions that you can ask yourself and things to think about to help you work through challenges, right? Let's say you're going through some sort of difficulty right now. I think asking yourself the questions that I have in there will give you a clearer perspective on what do I do? What's the best way to go about it to really increase my resilience, whatever it might be, a big challenge, personal, professional, whatever it is. Ask yourself these questions routinely, and it'll strengthen your resilience over time because it reframes how you see it, right? It's not just, am I winning? Am I losing? Right? It's not in that frame of mind. It's like, how can I be better in this situation? What can I change about how I think and feel that can make me feel like sort of invincible, right? I see as resilience as a way of semi being invincible, right? So it doesn't matter what happens to you, that I have this resilience muscle that I can get through it. And so I think that the tool is a great place to start. If you have any questions about it, happy to answer any questions that people have if they download it.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. We'll put a link to that in your show notes, I should say. So people can download it from there. So very cool, very cool. Last question for you. So the name of the show is the Relentless Pursuit of Winning. And people are defining winning however they want to. It's, whatever that thing is. The hard part in life is pursuing it relentlessly. And we've talked a little bit about this with resilience, obviously, but What what would you recommend to folks so they can make sure that they're relentlessly pursuing whatever that win they have is?
I know we get tired, so it's hard to be relentless. And I just encourage people to keep going. If they have some sort of a big goal that they want to go after, just keep going. Even if you're taking one baby step a week, a month, whatever it is, like you'll look back on it in a couple years and be like, wow, I'm glad I did all those little things along the way. So I think for the relentless part of it, is not giving up and even just doing something small to keep the progress going in one way or another, whatever the goal might be. And as far as like the winning aspect of it, right? I mean, I see, winning isn't just not getting knocked down, right? I think seeing maybe reframing winning. What does that mean to you? Defining that, right? And understanding what sort of brings you the joy and the happiness. I mean, to me, if you do something that brings you more joy and happiness, I see that as winning. And everybody has a different definition of what brings them joy and happiness. Go after that, relentlessly. So those are my parting thoughts on that.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Baby steps. I love it. I love it. Lisa, thank you so much for being on the show. Really enjoyed our conversation.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Thanks for having me, Rick. Love being here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And folks, thank you so much for watching or listening to another episode of the Relentless Pursuit of Winning podcast. We'll catch you next time.